Start it again? Okay. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I'm Deacon Tom, and this is part of our Lenten reflection series here at St. Turibius. I'd like to talk to you about praying the way of the cross in the tradition of St. Ignatius of Loyola. We remember that we are always in God's presence, and it is good for us to be here. The way of the cross began in the earliest days of the Church, when pilgrims to Jerusalem retraced Jesus' steps in his final journey to Calvary. Beginning in the 1500s, when it was not really possible for everyone to visit these holy sites in person, replica shrines were built in places all around Europe. Eventually, this practice developed into the set of 14 stations that we know today, that are found in almost every church. Lent is a time of deep prayer and a time that may lead us to look more closely for sacred things in ordinary, everyday life, and also to reflect on the humanity of Christ. Finding God in all things is one of the core perspectives in the spirituality of St. Ignatius of Loyola. I invite you to journey with me to make the way of the cross in the tradition of St. Ignatius. It was before my time, but those that were here in the 1930s and the 1940s, and even in the 1950s, will remember that time as one that radio was very good. In those years, radio entered people's homes much as television enters people's homes today. Without the visual component, people were invited to listen to the radio and make movies with their minds. This is how I like to think about Ignatian spirituality. Sometimes we can be too left-brain in our prayers. Being left-brain means we are very, very verbal, analytical, and orderly. We can overthink the stations of the cross and analyze instead of experience them. St. Ignatius taught that the imaginative prayer helps us to pray from our hearts and with our emotions. The heart is the engine of the soul. Lent is a time of purification, and praying the stations is a purgative experience. This spiritual experience helps empty us so we can be filled with the joy of the resurrection and be transformed as Jesus was transformed. Lent isn't the only time to practice Ignatian prayer or the stations of the cross. Praying with the heart and the head, or making the stations of the cross regularly throughout the year, brings Jesus right to us and shows him at his most human. I invite you now to pray the stations of the cross in an Ignatian tradition. There will be no pictures of the events, and that is done with a purpose. I believe that being visual or seeing pictures sometimes may steer our thoughts or cause certain distractions in our thoughts. Now, we immerse ourselves in our thoughts and in our imagination. Station 1. Jesus is condemned to death. Jesus is brought before Pilate. He is accused of misleading the people, opposing payment of taxes to Caesar, and claiming to be a Messiah, a king. Jesus then is brought to Herod, and then he's brought right back to Pilate. Pilate wanted to have Jesus whipped and released, but the crowds called for his crucifixion. The verdict of Pilate was that their demand should be granted. Now I invite you to close your eyes and think, who is in this scene? We have Pilate, Herod, Jesus, the soldiers, temple officials, attendants. What are they doing? What are they saying? What are they thinking? What are they feeling? I invite you to imagine yourself and think, where do I imagine myself in this scene? Am I a spectator? Am I Pilate? Am I Herod? Am I a servant in the background? When Jesus glances at you after he speaks with Pilate, how do you feel? Now I invite you to open your eyes as we continue the way of the cross. Station 2. Jesus takes up his cross. Jesus was being led out to the place of the skull, in Hebrew Golgotha, which we know as Calvary. Imagine the scene as Jesus was forced to pick up and carry the heavy cross, the tool used for his own degradation and execution. I invite you now to close your eyes. Who is in this scene? We have soldiers, we have spectators, we have officials, we have Jesus carrying the cross. What are the people in the scene doing? What are they saying? What are they thinking? What are they feeling? Where do you imagine yourself in this scene? When Jesus raises the cross and looks into my eyes, how do I feel? Now please open your eyes as we continue the way of the cross. Station 3. Jesus falls the first time. This is what we call a traditional belief, which I will talk about. According to tradition, Jesus fell 3 times while on the way to Calvary. However, the biblical account which describes the trial and execution of Jesus is silent on the matter of falls. I now invite you to close your eyes and imagine Jesus falling as he's carrying the heavy cross. Who is there along the road as Jesus carries the heavy cross to Calvary? What are the people along the road doing? What are they saying? What are they thinking? What are they feeling? Am I there standing along the road? Imagine Jesus looking into my eyes as he passes me, as I stand there along the road. How do I feel? Please open your eyes as we continue the way of the cross. Station 4. Jesus meets his mother. This is another traditional belief. Mary was present at every significant event in Jesus' life. Scripture does not record Mary along the road to Calvary. It does record her later at the foot of the cross when Jesus died. We can only imagine Mary grieving upon seeing her son covered in blood and sweat. Her heart breaks as she shares his pain. As a mother, she bears with sorrow of the pain he bears. I now invite you to close your eyes and think, who is present at the scene as Mary looks upon Jesus walking along the road? What are the people in this scene doing, thinking, saying? How do they feel? What part am I playing in this scene as Mary looks upon Jesus? As I stand there, when Jesus looks into my eyes, how do I feel? I now invite you to open your eyes as we continue. Station 5. Simon the Cyrene helps Jesus carry the cross. The Roman soldiers accompanying Jesus pressed Simon, a Cyrenian, into service to carry the cross behind Jesus. Simon can see himself as being in the wrong place at the wrong time. He comes to the roadside, curious about all the commotion, all the screaming. He sees a man, bloodied and sinking under the weight of a heavy cross, on the way to a horrible death. He is forced to help a condemned criminal. Imagine how close this brings Simon to Jesus. They are cheek to cheek. They look into each other's eyes. Jesus looks at Simon with eyes that show pain, but also gratitude. I now invite you to close your eyes. Who is present at this scene? Who do we see? What are they doing? What are they saying? What are they thinking? How do they feel? What part do I imagine myself playing in this scene? If Jesus were to look into my eyes at this moment, how do I feel? Please open your eyes as we continue. Station 6. Veronica wipes the face of Jesus. This is another example of a traditional belief. There is no reference to the story of Veronica and her veil in the gospel stories about the crucifixion of Jesus. We cherish the faces of those we love. We can only imagine Veronica seeing her beloved teacher and friend. She knows that he will die soon and cannot bear to see the pain, sweat, and blood in his face any longer. She pushes her way through the crowd to offer her caring presence as a gesture of tenderness. Jesus pauses and offers Veronica his gratitude with love in his eyes and accepts her kindness. As she wipes his face with her veil, the gift becomes hers. Please close your eyes. Who is present in this scene? What are they doing, saying, thinking, feeling? What part do I imagine myself playing in this scene as Veronica wipes Jesus' face with her veil? After Veronica wipes Jesus' face, he turns and looks into my eyes. How do I feel? Please open your eyes and we continue. Station 7. Jesus falls a second time. The traditional belief continues. We can imagine Jesus falling under the weight of the heavy cross. We are reminded of Jesus' humility and humanity. Jesus falls to his knees. His second fall urges us to let love repeatedly bring us to our knees. He invites us to continually engage in the pain, injustice, and suffering of humanity, and not to turn our backs or quit because we become weary. With each fall, Jesus assures us that we will immerse ourselves in such human fragility, and we will find Jesus there. Please close your eyes. Who is present in this scene when Jesus falls again? What are they doing? What are they saying? What are they thinking? What are they feeling? What part am I playing in this scene? When Jesus gets up, he turns and looks into my eyes again. How do I feel? Open open your eyes as we continue. Station 8. Jesus meets the women of Jerusalem. On the way to Calvary, a large crowd of people followed Jesus, including many women who mourned and lamented him. We do not know who they are. Jesus turns to these women who are crying and suffering with him and says, "Daughters of Jerusalem, do not weep for me, but weep for yourselves and for your children." He reminds them that people who love also experience suffering and worry. Please close your eyes. Who is present in this scene? What are the people doing, saying, thinking, feeling? Do we hear the women crying? What part do I imagine myself playing in this scene? After Jesus finishes speaking with the women, he turns and looks into my eyes. How do I feel? Please open your eyes and we continue. Station 9. Jesus falls a third time. The traditional belief continues. We imagine Jesus continuing on, yet again falling under the weight of a heavy cross. We think of our own griefs, our own sufferings, our own struggles with our own crosses all the time. We think of our limited humanity. We fall under the weight of our own crosses yet again. Jesus shares our experiences even here. He is exhausted. The ground is uneven. He stumbles. He falls. Did Jesus fall? Yes. Was he helpless? No. Despite the incredible physical and emotional pain, Jesus was able to rise up again for those he loves. Please close your eyes. Who is present in this scene as Jesus falls again? What are they doing? What are they saying? What are they thinking? What are they feeling? What part do I play in this scene? Jesus manages to get up. As he turns, he looks into my eyes. How do I feel? Please open your eyes and we continue. Station 10. Jesus is stripped of his garments. We have yet another traditional belief. The gospel stories about the crucifixion do not specifically talk about the soldiers stripping Jesus of his clothes or making him take his clothes off before they nailed him to the cross. We do know that they divided his personal items among themselves, and they even made a gambling game of it to decide who would get his items. Out of all the stations of the cross, this might be the most dehumanizing. The soldiers strip Jesus and reveal his naked, bloodied body. They laugh as they do this. This is done in a public manner, and all anyone can do is watch. Please close your eyes. Who is present in this scene as we see Jesus naked? What are they doing, saying, thinking, feeling? What part do I imagine myself playing in this scene? Imagine Jesus standing there naked, and he glances into your eyes. How do you feel? Please open your eyes as the way of the cross continues. Station 11. Jesus is nailed to the cross. Another traditional belief. None of the Gospels in the New Testament mentions whether Jesus was nailed or tied to the cross. The Gospel of John reports wounds in the risen Jesus' hands. It is this passage that perhaps has led to the overwhelming tradition that Jesus' hands and feet were nailed to the cross rather than being tied to it. We can only imagine the pain that resulted when iron pierces flesh and the Son of God is vulnerable and alone. A man who loved life with open arms is readied for death. His welcoming and saving arms are spread out on the cross for us. Close your eyes. Who is present in this scene? What are they doing, saying, thinking? How do they feel as Jesus is nailed to the cross? What part am I playing in this scene? After the final nail pierces Jesus, he opens his eyes and looks into mine. How do I feel? Please open your eyes. Station 12. Jesus dies on the cross. For over 3 hours, Jesus hung upon the cross. Crucifixion is a ghastly death. Death on the cross comes from suffocation, loss of body fluids, and multiple organ failure. The weight of Jesus' body pulling down on his arms made breathing difficult. His lungs and heart stopped working as blood drained through his wounds. Jesus cried out in a loud voice, "It is finished. Father, into your hands I commend my spirit." When he said this, he breathed his last. Please close your eyes. Who is present in this scene? When Jesus cries out, what are they doing? What are they saying? What are they thinking? How do they feel? Where do I place myself in this scene? How do I feel as I gaze into the lifeless eyes of Jesus? Please open your eyes as the way of the cross continues. Station 13. Jesus is taken down from the cross. This is the Pietas scene, an example of another traditional belief. Joseph of Arimathea was a wealthy Jewish man and a secret follower of Jesus. According to the teachings of the daily lives of the Jews during the first 5 centuries, the Talmud, Joseph of Arimathea was the younger brother of Joachim, the father of the Virgin Mary. So he was Mary's uncle and the great-uncle of Jesus. Joseph wanted to prevent Jesus' body from hanging on the cross overnight and to secure for his body an honorable burial. This offended the Jewish law, which allowed only a disgraceful burial for a person who was executed. Although the Gospels do not describe the scene, we can only contemplate Mary as she receives the lifeless body of her Son in her lap. Please close your eyes. Who is present in this scene as Mary receives the body of Jesus? What are they doing, saying, thinking? How do they feel? What part do I imagine myself playing in this scene? My eyes meet Mary's eyes as she holds Jesus. How do I feel? Please open your eyes as we continue. Station 14. Jesus is laid in the tomb. Taking the body, Joseph of Arimathea wrapped it in a clean linen cloth. Women who had come from Galilee followed behind. When he placed the body of Jesus in a rock-hewn tomb in which no one had been buried, they were there. All of them were joined by Nicodemus, a friend of Joseph, and they together anointed Jesus' body according to the Jewish burial custom. Then they rolled a stone against the entrance of the tomb. Mary Magdalene and Mary the mother of Joseph watched where Jesus was laid. The lifeless body of Jesus now rests in the tomb. At that time, it must have seemed to them to be the end of a vision, the end of a dream, the end of hope. Who is present in this scene as Jesus' tomb is sealed? What are they doing, saying, thinking, feeling? What part do I imagine myself playing in this scene? The heavy stone is rolled to seal the tomb. I happen to glance into the eyes of Mary Magdalene. How do I feel? I now invite you to open your eyes and regroup. Praying the Stations of the Cross during Lent with an Ignatian spirituality makes them come alive. Ignatian spirituality can help draw us closer to God in our thoughts throughout the entire liturgical year. Most of us live our lives somewhere between order and chaos. Ignatian spirituality, using imagination to put ourselves into faith stories, calls us to engage both our intellect and our emotions and can put a certain stillness and stability into our lives. May God continue to bless us, and I thank you.